Like I said, when you finish, you can just leave it in my mailbox. I'm gonna be in this for like an hour ish. So, um, yeah. And then when I work on it, I'll scan it back over to you so that way you can see the stuff. And I'll try to use like a red pen or something bright so you can see it. Cool. All right. I don't see anybody in this thing, so I'm a little concerned. Maybe it's just too early. It's too early. I think it's just too early. All right. Clear that. Is that a thing? I guess. We can get one. Yeah, ask her if they need to be. Yeah. Okay, cool. Sounds good. All right, I think I might have someone in my meeting here. All right, let's see what's up. Hello. Maybe not. Maybe not. It's okay. Mhm. There we go. Ish. Hi. I see some of you guys are here. Can you hear me okay? I think you guys a chat just to see if you guys can hear me.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes.
Okay, good.
Awesome. Hi, Carrie.
Hi.
How's it going?
Oh, it's spring break and it doesn't feel like it.
Yeah. I hear that. Same on my end.
Yeah.
It's always good times.
Yeah.
Well, things look like they're working here okay, so that's good.
Good.
So far, so good.
Excellent.
So I started the broadcast, and I don't know if I stop it, if people will be able to get in.
Oh, I got in and I think you'd already started it.
Yeah, I mean, I started it a while ago because I wanted to practice and test it.
Oh, don't stop it then.
Okay.
You won't be able to start it again.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, don't stop it.
Okay. I just was like, well, I don't want to stop it, and then I can't use the link again. So
Yeah, no, don't do that.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Right. So we have 4 people here. We're still waiting on 4 more. So we'll give them a minute to try and log in. Well, I guess we have 5 people here, and we're waiting on 4. In the meantime, I'm going to ask that everybody mutes their microphone unless you're ready to talk. That way we don't have any background noise. And sometimes if too many people try to talk at the same time, it backs. So there's a button up at the top of your screen that says mute microphone. So if you haven't already done that, you should probably do that just so we don't have the background noise. Okay, we'll wait just another minute and see if we get a couple more. And then if not, we'll go ahead and get started. So I don't want to spend too much time waiting for people.
I just want to make sure everybody can hear me, so I thought I would just say something now.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yep. Glad you could make it.
I have to do it from home since our campus is closed today, but luckily I brought everything home I needed.
Oh, that's good.
Are you someplace covered in snow?
Yes, in Pennsylvania, and we have just a little over a foot, and we had actually 2 days off, which surprised me.
Oh, nice.
Wow. Yeah, not here in Florida.
No.
Or in Houston. I miss it.
Unfortunately. All right. All right, so we have almost everybody now, so I think we're going to get started. So for those of you who just joined us, I'm going to ask that if you're not speaking at the moment to please mute your microphone. Up at the top, if you hover over the screen, you'll see the mute microphone button. It just helps minimize the background noise and sometimes feedback when multiple people are speaking, so I just wanted to throw that out there. And I want to welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today for our discussion on outreach to international students. Before we get started, I think it would be good if we went around and kind of introduce ourselves. If you could give your name, your title, and your institution. So I'm your host for today. I'm Michelle Demeter. I am the Distance and Outreach Coordinator at Florida State University.
I'll go. My name is Amanda Click. I'm the business librarian at American University in Washington, D.C.
I'm Carrie Creelman. I'm the coordinator of undergraduate instruction and outreach at the University of Houston.
I'm Barb Eschbach. I'm the head librarian at Penn State York.
Hi, everybody. I'm Emily Mann. I am the Research and Information Services Librarian at Florida State University, just an office down from Michelle. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, everybody. This is Julio from University of Texas. I'm a librarian here.
Henry or Gia, can you hear us? Are you able to chat with us?
So it looks like Gia can hear us, but I'm not sure we can hear her.
Yeah, maybe not. And I think we lost Henry.
Yeah, we just lost Henri.
Okay.
Maybe he'll be back in a moment.
Yeah. All right. Well, in the meantime, we'll get started. And Gia, if you're able to get your sound up and running, then we'll be glad to kind of have you introduce yourself. In the meantime, you can use the chat for right now, just so you can keep up and contribute if you'd like. So that way you're not kind of left out if you're working on some sound issues for the moment. So I guess just to kind of get this started, the first question to kind of think about would be, who do you consider to be your international students?
This is Barb from Penn State York. We're a very small commuter campus. We have just a little over 1,000 students, but 13% of them are international students. And out of those 13%, 85% are from China. So we have 120 students from China out of the 145 international students. It had been a lot of students from India in previous years, but that program was so successful that the main campus decided to take that over. So now it's the majority of students from China who make up our international population.
This is Amanda from American University. I'm new to my job and I'm new to American. I'm the business librarian, as I said. And next year, we have started a new program that's an English language accelerator program where students come in. It's run by an organization outside of campus. Students come in and do intensive English language for a year, and then they come into American. And the first group of those students will be starting in the fall. And they are, the majority of them are coming into the business school. So that's one reason I've started to think about this more. As I said, I'm new to the job, so I haven't done a lot of this outreach yet. So sorry, guys, I'm mostly here to learn from your ideas. But I did just finish my PhD over the summer, and my dissertation was about international students and how they do their research and writing. So I do have some research-based information to share, if not practice. But that's mostly what I'm concerned about, is making sure that I serve this new population of business students well.
I don't know our exact percentage of international students, but we do have a significant number at the university. We've got 44,000 students enrolled, and a good chunk of that is.
Okay, thanks again.
Welcome. Is it Henri?
Hi. Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. I go by Henry Monchide. I'm with Cal Lutheran University in Thousand Oaks, California.
Welcome. We're just kind of discussing who we consider to be our international students.
Okay, would you like me to?
If you want to, sure.
To jump in. Look at that question. I work with our international MBA program. So a lot of our students are from Asian countries. So they're from China, Taiwan, India. Some are from Russia. So geographically, I mean, that's how I would contribute to that answer.
So UT is one of the largest public universities. So we have about 5,000 international students from 120 countries. So we would consider all 5,000 of them are international students.
Hi, this is Emily at FSU. So we have international students who come for undergraduate programs, graduate programs, and then we also, like Amanda was saying, we have an accelerated English program. Students don't always matriculate then into FSU, but they are here on our campus, and I believe they have access to our libraries. Michelle, correct me if I'm wrong, the majority of our international students are graduate students, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, so most of our international students are graduate students.
Okay, so it sounds like we have a lot of similarities for the most part for the students that we're serving. I think, so I guess the next question would be what kinds of outreach, both physical and digital? So like I know at FSU, we have a campus in Panama that is a degree awarding satellite campus. So, right, we have students there that we need to provide services to as well. So we have students who are international on campus, but then we have our international campuses. So those are two kind of different things, but because we do have we do have quite a few digital services. So what kinds of outreach, both physical and digital, are you guys providing for your international students?
I piloted a first-year program a couple years ago in 2014, and I was surprised by the number of international students that participated. And I realized after speaking to a lot of them that they were looking for some kind of place to belong. We're a small commuter campus, so most of them obviously have to live off campus in a little apartment complex with all the other students from China. So I think they were really trying to find a way to fit into this small campus. And I would offer, first year I did it, I offered 23 programs in the library. And they all were based around a particular literacy. So it was either basic literacy, civic literacy, and information literacy. There were 5 different literacies we used. And I noticed a lot of international students coming. And the students from China, unlike students from some of the other countries, like to come up with an American version of their name. So either it was something to do with their name, sounded a little bit like it, or they would just come up with something completely different. So there was a student whose name was Zhang, but he Americanized it and he became Axel. And I noticed that that wasn't the way with other international students on our campus. They kept their own names. We tried to pronounce them, but the Chinese students really liked to Americanize their names. And early on in one of the events, I spoke to a couple of the Chinese students and said, I would really like to be able to call you by your Chinese name if you could help me pronounce it. And they were very gracious and we worked on it. And I asked if they would mind if we had a little program, which I called Pleased to Meet You. And it was like a speed dating format where we had international students sit on one side of the table, faculty, staff, and students on the other side. And then we just spent about 10 minutes with each person before we moved on and really worked at pronouncing each other's name and getting to know that person. And it was really great. We used a research article called Strangers in Stranger Lands, Language, Learning, and Culture. And we talked about some of the questions from that article as kind of an icebreaker before we did this. But it was really a great way to have them feel like you cared enough to want to get to know them better. And out of all the events we did, that one I really think generated the most excited conversation among everybody there.
I wanted to add that. Oh, I'm not sure how to raise my hand in the room, or is that, if somebody else wants to go ahead, that's fine.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. We're similar. We're on international MBA orientation. So every quarter when we get the new cohort of students in, it's not just a library activity, but it's through the School of Management. So they set up tables, and and they have an orientation day. So all of the different departments on campus has a table, and it's kind of like speed dating approach where they'll visit each table for maybe 3 or 5 minutes, and then we just give them a rundown of what we offer, our resources, services, show them the library pages, and that will get to meet 1 or 2 librarians. There's also, we have an Austrian cohort. That they do an online orientation with them, and then I usually participate in that as well and do again just a quick library tour of our website, our resources, and introduce myself as their liaison for assistance.
I have a question for Barb. When you invited faculty, staff, and students to participate in that, I was just wondering how your numbers looked. Did you have a lot of faculty? Did you have a lot of students? Like who came to that speed dating event?
Actually, most of it was faculty and staff to that particular event, which was really nice for the students because they got to know a faculty, well, 4 or 5 faculty members really well at that. What was nice in each of our programs, first-year students were earning points by coming to these things, and they also earned points for each connection they made with someone else. And those points led up to earning or winning a scholarship in the amount of $2,014, which was the year they started. What was nice is that when there was an event where we had only 1 student come to, the rest were faculty and staff and other students. We only had 1 first-year student, so we all took the time to make a connection with this 1 first-year student. And what was nice is he was an international student, and so it was really a great opportunity, he told me later, for him to practice speaking English with everybody. I was the last person in the group to try to make a connection with him, and by that time we had already figured out his favorite foods, his favorite ice cream, all kinds of things about him. And so I asked, do you have any brothers and sisters? And he looked at me very confused and said, do you mean cousins? And I said, no, siblings. And he said, but I'm from China. And the whole group it was such a great kind of moment to realize what they're always trying to accomplish with these diversity events, that you forget how you take things for granted. And I didn't even think about the fact that most of our Chinese students are only children. So our numbers at any of our events weren't really high. Some of them we had maybe 40 people, and on a campus of only 1,000, that's great. But some of them we only had maybe 5 or 6. But it seemed to always attract a small group of international students who really felt like it made them belong on the campus.
Cool. Like Gia, and I apologize if I'm not pronouncing your name properly. I'm just reading your chat that you provide a library tour and library instruction at a presentation at the International Student Orientation, and that's what we do as well. I'm not sure we do a whole lot beyond that to reach out to our international populations, even though we should.
So we have an international program here at FSU, and it's called the Globe, and it's kind of a resource area for international students. They actually have a coffee hour every week where they feature a snack from a different country, and international students as well as any students are invited to that. We recently just had the library sponsor one of those coffee hours. I guess we paid for the snacks or whatever. And we sat there and we tabled. We told people about a lot of resources. We sort of made a resource sheet for people who are interested in international resources, because it's not only international students that go to these coffee hours, but also students who are close by or interested in going internationally as well. We don't have a language teaching software, but we tried to kind of feature like resources that had like international newspapers or dictionaries for different languages and things like that. And that went pretty well. And then this week is our spring break, and we actually just held an international coffee hour in the library. I think because the Globe was not having its general international hour. And so honestly, I didn't think many people were going to come because I know a lot of times international students travel. But there were some that did not travel, and they came out for it, and they seemed really happy that we were here because the regular coffee hour was canceled and they've been working all week. They're here because they've been working really hard, so it was nice for them to have a little bit of a break. And again, we just kind of pushed some of the resources, and this was the first one we'd had in the library, but I would say it went really successfully considering the fact that, you know, there's no one on campus.
All right. So are you customizing any of your outreach in specific ways based on the unique cultural or educational backgrounds of international students? Or are you doing things that you already do with other groups and you're just kind of maybe just advertising it to international students and not changing it in any way? Or if you are customizing it, to what extent might you be customizing your outreach efforts?
What we did is after several events in the fall of 2014, one of the Chinese students came to me and said, we would like to have, for the first time ever, a Chinese New Year celebration. And we figured you could help us since you're always organizing these other things. So we helped them organize what has now become an annual event. And it was really great. And it made me realize that now they saw the library as a resource. So the next fall, when we talked about what we could do in addition to the New Year, they told us about the Mid-Autumn Festival. And in China, it's something where they spend a lot of time with their family. They watch the moon rise. They tell riddles. They told us, you know, what was involved in that. They eat moon cakes. So we did that and had it open to the campus. We had, I think it was the only thing that we had that was actually outside. And we invited the local astronomy professor to come with interesting and fun moon facts. And we had moon cakes and told riddles. And at the end, I spoke to the one student from China who was really involved in a lot of things. And I said, was this anything at all like what you would do at home? And he said, oh, I just loved it. You know, even though it wasn't exactly the same, he just felt like that it really mattered to the campus to try to make him feel at home. And we had a lot of people come to that event.
So one thing I'm a bit curious about when it comes to adapting these sort of outreach events for international students, obviously it makes sense to touch base right when they are arriving on campus and when they're getting settled. But a lot of the students that I've spoken with said that they appreciate, you know, orientations and that sort of thing, but they're also, if they're brand new, they're still kind of like getting in the groove of the language issues, and are a little bit kind of overwhelmed with the information. So something I had been thinking about was kind of holding these events at different times during the year, you know, once they're a little more settled academically and culturally. So I'm wondering if anyone has tried anything like that, or if we pretty much kind of stick to, you know, these upfront orientations.
This is Barb again. All our events were held throughout the whole academic year. What I did notice is we have a particular faculty member on campus who works with the international students, and she invites other faculty to help them get settled before the semester starts. So we would have, and luckily the one librarian got involved in that, and so she took a whole van load of students down to IKEA to buy furniture for their apartments and took them shopping locally for things. And I think just having the librarian involved in that activity made them feel like, oh, now I know somebody, I can come to the library. We also did 2 what we called marathon readings, and the local newspaper picked up the one that we did on Harry Potter, and it took us 9 hours to read the whole book, but they interviewed an international student who was there, and he said he was so nervous about the event before it started, because he said it actually is my first month in this country, and I'm worried that my pronunciation might not be correct, but he said he loved it. It was a chance to meet new people and to practice English. So I'm thinking that a marathon read like that would be really fun, because you only have 15 minutes and it's a small group of people there listening, and it really made a difference for this person to feel like he was practicing speaking English.
So Gia mentioned that for the library tour, she asked for student workers and one who came from Iraq, who was an Arabic speaker, to do the tour with her. And, you know, just trying to make sure that doing the tours in native languages can be encouraging and helpful to the students. So that's a really good idea. I know at FSU, we don't do anything specifically. We're working on trying to do that because it's really difficult once they get on campus. There's no real centralized location. They are basically just operating through their individual departments. So it gets really difficult to kind of target international students in that way unless they self-identify. So I think most of our engagement activities, I think several of them, so we have a grad social that we do twice a year, which is targeted towards grad students, postdocs, anybody in any like master's, PhD program, and we do it twice. So we do it once in our main library and once in the science library. So one in the fall, one in the spring. And we do tend to get quite a few international students who attend that. We're not specifically targeting them, but we found that, you know, because we have such a large population of international students who are grad students, it does tend to attract them, and it's kind of a different event. So we give out free wine and hors d'oeuvres. So it's, and we market it as kind of an opportunity for them to chat with other grad students, kind of see what others are up to, make friends, do some maybe interdisciplinary networking, but also it's an opportunity for them to see the libraries and to talk to the librarians and maybe feel a little more comfortable coming in and talking to people in a more kind of informal environment.
So I like that idea, because I think talking to people in an informal environment is probably something that an international student would really appreciate. Just all these opportunities to speak with native speakers and to really kind of immerse themselves in the culture. I think any opportunities you can provide that will give them a chance to do that. So that some of the series of events that we had, we called them speakeasies, and we build them as just opportunities to improve your public speaking in a really casual situation. So we'd often be talking about some fun, interesting research article. So they just got used to talking about scholarly things, but you're not getting a grade. And I realized that maybe we could have maybe targeted the international students a little better, because they do an international coffee hour every week. And, you know, we could have promoted it better as like a speakeasy being of value to them, to just really have this communication opportunity to practice their speaking. And I think the article that I had read that I used a couple years ago, I think it said something in there about Americans don't tend to listen very well. So I think if you're in these small groups of informal conversations, that it also helps the non-international students to kind of improve their own listening skills, because you do have to listen a little more when someone has an accent or they're struggling sometimes with the words. So I think it helps everybody to have those opportunities.
So this kind of brings up a good point about the challenges that international students face on campus. So what are some of the other challenges that you think that international students might be facing on your campus? And maybe we can then brainstorm about some efforts that might help the library, step in and help students overcome some of those challenges or face some of those challenges in an easier way.
I was wondering if other campuses experience this, but I found that a lot of them tend to isolate themselves within their group. So you often see groups of Chinese students speaking Chinese and they don't mingle or interact. And I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of reasons for that, but to me that seems a challenge.
Yeah, being isolated, and Gia threw out plagiarism, which I know has been discussed on our campus many times, about how American students view plagiarism versus international students, and even by region, how that's defined, what it means in their country versus here, and how that sometimes can get students into hot water without them meaning to. So yeah, that's definitely a big issue.
So I actually have a couple of thoughts about the plagiarism issue. One thing I've learned in my research is that, in general, the international students I was speaking with, they believe that they understand what plagiarism is, and they know they need to avoid it, and they have been taught to paraphrase. So they say this, I know what it is, I know I need to avoid it, and I paraphrase. That's how I avoid it. But then when I would ask them to tell me more about their process of paraphrasing, they're not paraphrasing, they're plagiarizing. Because paraphrasing is a really difficult skill to learn for everyone, not native speakers, non-native speakers, domestic students, international students. It's a really difficult skill. And when students are getting this orientation, this is what you need to do, just paraphrase, that'll fix all your problems, but they're not really getting to practice that skill under supervision. That becomes an issue. I actually really think that librarians could play a big role in academic integrity issues on campus, particularly with plagiarism. So I don't want to get us off track, but I would also be interested in knowing what people are doing related to that, maybe particularly with international students. And I also wanted to mention, going back to what Barb was saying about students kind of staying in their own groups, I found that a lot of students had tried. They wanted to spend time with Americans and make American friends, but they just find Americans to be sort of unfriendly or superficial. American friendships, they see them as kind of more superficial. Like, you say that you're friends, but then you don't actually really have a deep friendship. And so a lot of the Chinese students spoke to me about that. And also just the difficulty of not having a shared knowledge base, right? Like, they don't care about the maybe sports that are going on campus. They have different pop culture knowledge. There's just you have to find things to connect on. And I think that can be a challenge. So I think that giving these kind of outreach activities that you guys are all talking about, where you're bringing together international students and domestic students, is really, really valuable.
So also playing off what you said, Barb, about sometimes the international students grouping together. At a previous institution I worked at, University of North Carolina at Greensboro, I would notice that sometimes international students were using the library very heavily, but they weren't coming to the reference desk and asking for help. And I had previously lived in China for a year teaching English, and I saw that libraries, they were very different. They weren't a resource for helping people, they were a study space. And so in order to encourage people to ask questions and have them come use our reference desk, we created a reference desk giant mobile, and it said "Ask Us" in 13 different languages. And it was huge, and it became like a meeting space for for people as well, because we also had a mobile on the other end of the library. So it was kind of, it reflected what was already in the building. And then it had 13 different languages. I just honestly asked people I knew in the school who spoke different languages. So we had like Chinese, we had Turkish, we had Arabic, we had all sorts of languages. And it kind of brought people to the desk sometimes, even just to say, oh, do you speak this language? I saw Turkish. And we'd say, you know, we don't speak Turkish, but we'd be happy to help you with whatever you want. Actually, someone came and talked to us while we were creating the mobile. We were in the office, like making it. Someone saw it and came to the office just to talk about it. So it was a good conversation piece, and it definitely brought people out and let them know that we were there to help them, because it literally said, ask us. So they did.
I never thought about that. The fact that libraries, I'm getting feedback now.
I'll mute myself.
I was just say, make sure you guys are muted if you're not speaking.
I never thought about the fact that libraries might be different in other countries. I don't know why I didn't think about that. So they might not all be perhaps quiet places. They might not all be places where you would go to get help from a librarian. So that definitely would be something I'd be interested in learning more about. And I guess just asking the international students what it's like there, because to promote what it is on our campus would be really helpful then. I never thought about kind of advertising things that I took for granted they'd already know. That's a good point.
There's a recent paper published by a librarian at NYU Abu Dhabi where she talked to a lot of the international students about their perspectives on what a library is. I'll find the citation. I'll put it in the chat. But it's really interesting. I was abroad in Egypt for a few years, and one thing that really struck me there is that it was a library was not really about providing access to information, but about protecting the information. So it was actually really hard to do research because the librarians didn't actually want you to put your fingers on any of the books and that sort of thing.
Yeah, those are a lot of challenges. But I think we've got some good ideas so far that have come up for kind of addressing those. Are there any other ideas that anyone has that they want to share that might help overcome some of the challenges that were kind of thrown out here? So we have isolation, plagiarism, the culture of the library, what the expectation is that the library actually functions as, whether it's protecting information or providing support for research. Are there any other ideas that anybody has that they want to share before we go to a different question?
It looks like Gia has said that they translate library handouts into different languages and have a LibGuide for international students, which I think would be, Gia, could you send us the link to that? That would be helpful. I don't know why even we have a very diverse student population, not even considering our international students, and I don't know why we don't have more handouts in different languages. That seems like an obvious thing to do. And thank you, Amanda, for including that reference.
All right, so those are some additional good ideas. So we've got a LibGuide coming our way as well. So we'll keep an eye out for that in the chat. So I think we touched on this a little bit about whether there are certain points in the semester that are better suited for outreach to international students. Some of you said you do things kind of year round. A lot of people, it seems like we're front loading during orientation. Does anybody have anything, any other times of the year, or is there something we should be thinking about that could be a really good opportunity that maybe we're missing to reach out to our international students?
I think so many of our international students live on campus, obviously, or maybe that's not. A lot of our international students live on campus, and I think having events around times when other students aren't on campus, I think would be a nice thing. But I don't know that we've done that, like around spring break and other times when maybe they're not traveling, like some folks do.
I agree with Gia. I think we should have library instruction for international students. So maybe when they're doing their orientation, it should be more than just a tour of the library, but maybe maybe even getting into some of those cultural differences, what the library would be. I also noticed we're not open Friday evenings. We close at 5 because before we had international students, nobody would come to the library on a Friday evening. But we have had several of the international students wonder why we're not open Friday evening. So I think for them, they would probably use the library. So maybe we need to start thinking more in terms of a better schedule that would meet their needs. And the other thing I touched on a little bit earlier is just to find out some holidays or cultural things that they really miss by not being at home. And then maybe the library could fill the gap in that way by providing some kind of program about that or having them present a program about it.
I think something else that's really important is making sure that the students understand what the role of the librarian is. And I've seen some schools that will do like a personal librarian for, and this is all, you know, there are scale issues for all of these things, depends on your campus and how big your library staff is, but a personal librarian for, I think UNC Chapel Hill did it for transfer students, where every transfer student was contacted and said, this is your personal librarian who will kind of help you understand what's available at UNC since you're just transferring in your sophomore years or whenever. So I've sort of been thinking about something like that, this idea of having a personal librarian for the international students. Again, like in Egypt, the role of the librarian was not very respected. It was kind of a fallback career. Like you couldn't get into law school or med school, so you ended up as a librarian. So, and they were kind of viewed as like the protector of the books. So it was very stereotypical. So, you know, it took a lot of work to really help those students understand what a librarian could do for you. And how you could benefit from that relationship. And often, you know, and students from other areas are just worried about bothering you, you know, like, can I really just bother that person at the reference desk? Because she seems pretty busy. So I think just helping these students understand what our role is and what we can do.
One thing that I've seen that I thought was really cool, it wasn't related to international students, but it could be, was rather than just regular business cards, the librarians made like themselves looking kind of approachable, and then it had like their skills or their special, they were kind of like superhero cards or whatever, but they would like say what the librarians could do for you. But sometimes just humanizing it can make it someone more accessible.
I realize that we can't hire the international students in the library as a work study because they don't qualify, but we do have a really diverse group of students who are work study students. And so maybe something as simple as that, as the international students coming in the library and seeing a lot of diverse students working in the library might make them feel a little more comfortable.
So, do any of you collaborate with other campus units in your outreach efforts?
So here at UT, can everybody hear? Yeah, so here at the UT, we have pretty strong, like the international office, and all of our outreach are going through the international office. They would arrange like ESL class and or academic English program, stuff like that, and they will bring like the instructors in those programs will bring students to the library for a library tour and the library information literacy classes. So that's how mostly what we reach out to like international students.
We have a Center for Language and Culture Center that works with a lot of our international students, isn't an office of international students, but works with a lot of our international students, and we do some collaborative programming with them. Again, not much, minimal workshops and things like that. Some around how to use the library, what to expect at the library, a little bit around academic honesty, but we could be doing more there.
We've collaborated a little bit, but not specifically for international student programming. So we've collaborated with the career office, with the campus psychologist. We did a program. But I'm wondering if what Amanda said about the plagiarism and academic integrity, if that wouldn't be a good topic to collaborate with other units on campus to present something not in a punitive kind of way, but in a really informative kind of way, so that we could all learn why the differences between plagiarism perhaps here and what other students experience. I just think that would be really interesting, and I think it would be helpful for those international students to really have a forum to get their opinions and ideas about what it is, and have us kind of have more of an understanding about that. I like that as a topic.
So here at FSU, we did go to the Globe, which is where international students they get help from, and we were asked to do something on plagiarism. And so we wanted to do like a little bit of here's what the library has to offer, and then focus on plagiarism. I think we scheduled like 2 hours, but they ended up asking so many questions about library resources that we really didn't get to the plagiarism part very much. So I would say definitely schedule a couple of sessions, even though, you know, they say, oh, students don't have the time and they're not going to want to come to it. I mean, they were asking a lot of questions, and I still see some of those students throughout now, and they're using the library more than I think they would have, and they know about the resources as well. So scheduling not just a workshop, but kind of a series might be a good idea.
Okay, so we're kind of winding down. So as we are, is anybody doing anything to assess the success of their outreach to international students?
We did an evaluation at the end of each program, and I also collected, but have never analyzed this yet, data from the students who participated, so that I can get their GPAs and just see if it made any difference to be involved in the activities that we did. Kind of lost my train of thought there. Oh, but the one thing that meant the most to me, and it wasn't really a direct assessment, but was a letter that one of the Chinese students left for me right before he left campus. My mom was in the hospital at the time, so I wasn't there, and I'm kind of glad I wasn't there, because it forced him to write this whole page thank you. And he said that the program that I did was the key for him to engage in his new life. He got to know how people communicated in this country, and he said how open you people are to internationals like me. Without you, I could never get used to into this campus so fast and nicely in any way. you and your program made me feel attached to this place. So I feel for me that accomplished what I wanted it to do. So other than the kind of evaluative surveys that we did at the end of each, I didn't really have any assessment other than, you know, the feedback that I would get from students.
So I just noticed Henry posted that they work with the Writing Center, going back to our previous question. Gia said they collaborate with ESL, the Writing Center, and the Office of International Education. And in terms of assessment, they conduct a survey about the resources and service needs for the international students on campus. So her campus has an Office of International Education that helps to distribute the survey, which is also a really good partnership to try and have some of your other groups help push out some of those surveys or other kinds of assessments. Does anybody else have any way that they assess? It doesn't have to be formal, it could be informal or, you know, anecdotal. So I think in general outreach, I think this is an area that outreach, just not just to international students, but just in general, is working on trying to improve as a whole. Is how do we assess the outreach efforts that we're doing? How do we know that they're successful? And what are the metrics that we use to determine success? It's a difficult kind of thing. So I suppose it might be something we need to think about for those of us who are doing outreach to this group in particular. What are ways that we think would be helpful in determining the success of what we're doing, and how do we know that what we're doing is working? Oh, and
Yeah.
Barb put a couple links over here to the side about the Pleased to Meet You session, and then another link to her website that highlights the specific international events. So there will be notes for this discussion, so we'll make sure that those links are included somewhere in those notes. So that way you don't have to worry if you don't capture them right here. I guess in the last few minutes that we have, are there any things that we didn't discuss that you were hoping would be talked about, or that maybe we didn't prompt a question but you wanted to talk about or share with the group before we kind of sign off?
I definitely think we have a lot of work to do. Barb, you're still muted.
Am I muted now? You can hear me? Okay. I had it backwards then. I think what's kind of interesting for me, and maybe something I'd like to pursue, is the students who learn to speak English as their second language. I wonder how, when they come to our country, how close that English that they learned is to what the other students are actually using. And I think that could make for some interesting conversations too. The spoken English they're encountering in this country, and what they learned, and maybe even just making that a speakeasy and inviting them and having them be the ones to talk, I think would just give them that opportunity to practice and feel like a real member of campus.
All right. And Gia has posted the LibGuide link off to the side as well. So that's another great resource for everybody to check out. It looks like we've pretty much wrapped up. So I'd like to thank each of you for joining the discussion today. And I hope you were able to take away some new useful ideas from our discussion. And maybe some opportunities for, some things to think about as we kind of move forward. Following today's roundtable, you'll receive an email with an evaluation survey, and we hope you'll complete it and let us know how we can improve this experience for you and other participants in the future. Again, the notes will be posted, and yeah, thank you so much for taking out some time to chat and share some ideas with us. So thanks.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you. This is my first time using Google Hangout and it worked fine. So thanks again.
Great.
Thank you.
Bye.